Tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, can I start by thanking all colleagues for their acknowledgements of the part of the Honourable Tariana Turia and Hone Harawira for their part in presenting this legislation to the House. Unfortunately, they're not here, so I'll take all of their accolades. That aside, you'll know that, of course, they have done a lot of work, but let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, while they're getting all the accolades, some of us were doing the real hard work. In behind, no, I just joke. They've been working hard at things, and of course, Mr. Speaker, it would be no secret to the House that tobacco control and things around tobacco have obviously been a key priority for the Māori Party, and thankfully, on the back of the efforts of both Tariana and Hone, we think that we've made some major traction, and of course, other parties have contributed, as have been acknowledged in the House tonight. The party's tobacco campaign to rid our shores of tobacco harm has resulted in some real landmark milestones, and which have included, as some have mentioned already, Tariana's initiative in increasing a tobacco tax, Hone's initiating of an inquiry into Māori-related tobacco death by the Māori Affairs Committee of Parliament, and of course the introduction of this legislation to ban retail displays and keep tobacco out of sight, out of mind. We're making, I think, significant progress here, and the momentum, we hope, will be continued. The past 12 months have been the most rapid, I think, as a non-smoker in my looking over things around this particular issue in terms of history making around tobacco control, and so I stand as some that feels pretty good about the progress that we've made as a party and indeed as a parliament over the space and time over the last 2 years with the National Party. I do want to acknowledge, as I say, the work that Tariana has done, and indeed the whole Parliament, which passed two legislation to increase tobacco excise with an overwhelming cross-party majority of 118 votes to 4. The House will recall the excise tax increases were really significant, I think about 6 or 8 months ago. First off, we equalised the tax on loose tobacco to match tailor-made cigarettes. Basically, this was about ensuring no matter what type of tobacco was smoked, the smoker would face the same incentive to quit. Then, so we raised the tax on all tobacco products by 10% for roll-your-own tobacco. That had an effect of an immediate increase by more than 25%. But that wasn't all. The legislation passed that night included another 10% rise in January of 2011 and then another 10% in 2012. Speaking to the work that Hone Harawira has been doing, he had the original idea of an inquiry into the tobacco industry in Aotearoa and the consciences of tobacco use for the consequences, of tobacco use for Māori to the Māori Affairs Committee was an initiative that he took up with a lot of vigour, and it was pleasing to see the way that the Māori Affairs Committee, maybe a little bit reluctantly at the start, but certainly once it got gathered momentum, could see from the evidence that this was an honourable take to take up. And they did so, and of course resulted in, I think, the debate on Wednesday of this week about that particular topic being debated in the House. Just over a year ago, the Select Committee announced it would carry out that inquiry into the tobacco industry and, of course, the consequences of tobacco use for Māori. And in March 2010, our co-leader and Associate Minister of Health, Tariana, initiated a public consultation on a proposal to ban tobacco displays in retail outlets. I'm sure that most of the House will be aware of many of the statistics, although maybe not able to quote them off the top of the head right now. But we did find, of course, from the information from that consultation process and indeed some information given to us, that tobacco is the largest single cause of preventable death in New Zealand, and an estimated 5,000 people are dying very early, well before time. There were major ramifications for whānau in losing lives, elders, parents. The most critical fact that motivates all of us to be here today is that 45% of Māori aged between 15 and to 64 years of age are current smokers. 1 in 2 long-term smokers will die of smoking-related diseases. Those that die lose, on average, 15 years of life. None of these statements are new, sir, but we offer no apology in repeating them tonight as we look at this particular issue. We're still losing generations of our people dying in middle age. Even more tragic is the fact that up to 46% of Māori fall under the, I suppose, an explanation of sudden unexplained death in infancy, and that's attributed to smoking. So, Mr. Speaker, we welcome the initiative championed by co-leader Tariana in this bill, which will make tobacco less visible and attractive by reducing the marketing and advertising that still exists. It will make tobacco hopefully less accessible by providing for better measures to prevent sales to children and young people under the age of 18. These measures will not only aid in preventing young people from starting to smoke, but will help those trying to quit. So there is actually a tragic history to the use of tobacco in Aotearoa, and it goes back to a time, I suppose, for our people was before the time, I suppose, of the Treaty of Waitangi. But in terms of some of the accounts in my area in the Bay of Plenty, it included, in doing some research around this, it included 8 pounds of tobacco and 12 pipes for chiefs at Opotiki, when I'm talking about taking the treaty around, 5 fancy pipes and half a pound of tobacco at Te Kaha, 2 fancy pipes and half a pound of tobacco at Tōrere, 11 fancy pipes and 5 pounds of tobacco at Whakatane, and hopefully today we take on face to face some of that background history that will overturn itself with the, at least the movement forward of this particular bill. In closing, Mr. Speaker, Aotearoa's approach to tackling tobacco harm has been turned up another notch, we hope, because of the Māori Party's efforts and, of course, working with the National Party and with the support of the other parties in general across the floor. And these are all efforts to save and preserve precious lives of people across the country. And if that's the motivation, then it can but not be supported as we look towards positive influences for not only young people, but certainly those who are older in age. Kia ora tātou.
Nikki Wagner.
Thank you,